Welcome to Year, Make, Model, Money, the auto parts e-commerce podcast by Data Here to There. In each episode, we break down the key trends, challenges, and opportunities in the aftermarket parts industry and e-commerce. From interviews with industry leaders to tips on streamlining your business, we'll give you the knowledge to stay competitive in today's market. It's time to take your business to the next level with Year, Make, Model, Money.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Barry Alt with Motorhead Digital, and my co-host is Brennan Chrisman from Data Here to There. We're excited to kick off this episode of the Year, Make, Model, Money podcast by Data Here to There. Today, we're thrilled to have Nathan Hadley as our guest. Nathan is the owner of Corvette Realm and many other businesses, a Data Here to There customer, starting with Shop in a Box and e-commerce site product. Welcome, Nathan.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So Nathan, for a bit of a kickoff, I always like to get to know the people that I'm chatting with here on the podcast. Best way to do that with car guys is, what was your first car or your first fun car? When did you get it? And what did you like or hate about it?
So my first car was a 1991 Plymouth Acclaim with a V6 engine. It lasted all of 10 days. I grew up in the country and got run off the road and flipped it 5 times on day 10. And then promptly went back to riding the school bus for a while, and then ended up with a Dodge Ram minivan that was a DuPont carpet van before that. My first fun car and the first car that I actually bought myself was a 1991 Eagle Talon TSI. I bought,
awesome.
Put together by our money, went up and had a lot of fun with that. Started, that was when I really started tinkering with the car, doing small upgrades to boost, turbo upgrades. Didn't really get to suspension yet, but wanted it to go fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Was it the all-wheel drive one or the front-wheel drive one?
No, it was the all-wheel drive.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Nice. Fantastic car.
Probably not what an 18-year-old needed, but it
no.
was
Absolutely. Yeah. My first fun car back when I was an 18-year-old, I can just barely outdo you. I got this fantastic corporate job like right after high school. And I went out and I was, still living at home, working this fantastic job, making a great salary. So I did the best 18-year-old thing you can do, and I went out and bought an AMG Mercedes, used, a couple of years old, some kilometers on it, but 6.2 naturally aspirated V8, like 507 horsepower. Thing was a rocket ship, and I was very stupid in that, but absolutely, no issues, luckily. But I totally get where you're coming from. I actually looked at an Eagle Talon recently, a couple of years ago. I was really tempted to buy it. Somebody had one up just for $1,000. I'm like, perfect project car, and somebody snagged it right before I got to it.
I don't know a lot about those. Who made Eagle Talons? Was it Eagle? Was it American Motors, or was it something else?
So that was made by Eagle, but it was called a DSM, or Diamond Star Motors. And it was a collaboration between Eagle, Plymouth, and Mitsubishi. So there was the Mitsubishi Eclipse, the Plymouth Laser, and then the Eagle Talon.
Okay, yeah, now I remember. It's all coming back to me.
Good old DSM.
My first car was a 63 Rambler Ambassador Station. My first fun car was a 340 Duster, 73 340 Duster 4-speed car, which I wish I still had. So
that was awesome.
Yeah, it was a fun car. Back then, we put the lights painted the rear ends flat white. We put lights up underneath and lit up the rear ends. I'm kind of old, but now they put all the LEDs and stuff. So I guess we were way ahead of our times, right? Those lights way before LEDs. But Nathan, tell us how you got started in the automotive aftermarket. Really, how did you get into, you're selling parts online, e-commerce, things like that? Did you work in a shop before? How did you get into that?
So originally, when I was 19, I had started to get into cars and had drawn up plans with a couple friends of mine that we were going to open a shop locally. We had put together logos, all of this, and then realized we didn't have the money to fund it, and that promptly went away. And life went on.
Damn money.
Jeez. Yeah. So in 2019, a friend of mine that also has a Corvette convinced me that I should come out to Summit Point Racetrack with him. So I went out the first time and did a ride along a couple times in the Corvette, and went out and purchased a Miata, just a couple $1,000 Miata that I could drive on track and see if it was really what I wanted to do. And after that first weekend, the grin on my face took about 3 weeks to go away. And my wife looked at me and said, "You should go book more of those, but find a way to pay for it." So then I started coming up with ideas, and I've had an affinity for cars for years. So I decided, what better than to start a parts business. So I started doing my research from there, looking around. I found Turn 14. I originally got rejected from Turn 14 because I didn't have a commercial space. But they continued to work with me, and we found a way around it, or to meet their intent.
Oh, good, because I thought that was a major requirement that they didn't.
Usually is.
Yeah, I think I kind of wore them down. I kept calling and going, all right, but if we do this, does that meet your requirement? And finally they relented and let me get a Regis office space that I could call my commercial space.
Okay.
And then after a couple of years of proven sales, they've let me kind of dump that space and go to being a little more mobile. We talk about setting up a shop every now and then, but in Northern Virginia, there's a lot of shops around here, and not sure we're going to get there.
Yeah, hot rod shops are a dime a dozen in that general area, right? And then, not to mention, real estate is such a massive expenditure for a business. Like rent or like a lease is insane. It's such a huge overhead, right?
Hosting, overhead of rent. It's kind of a no-brainer at some point, right? Especially if your virtual space is doing really well, right?
So recently, when you've been moving into that online space and making the most of it, you went with us with a shop in a box option. So what kind of drew you to that, and what made you think that was the right way to go for you?
So for me, I was originally trying to do everything myself. So I had found Shopify and started a page, and trying to take parts off Turn 14 and manually load them in. And I think I got to around 150 or 200 parts that I was manually checking inventory and prices and uploading daily. And quickly realized that was not going to work in the long term. I have two children and a wife that enjoy seeing me, and spending hours updating a couple hundred parts of inventory every night was not the way I wanted to go. Plus, it cut down on a lot of the car time. So I actually started talking to a couple different companies. I actually talked to Dan at Turn 14, who runs their API. And I started looking at, okay, how do I get access to the API? I have a little bit of technical skills and considered trying to build out an integration to work with their API myself. And I quickly realized that I did not want to do that either. So I had originally started with a different API integrator. And then after a trial with them, that did not work out. I went back and talked to Dan because he was very careful not to show favoritism towards any of the people. And then after the failed attempt, we had a really good conversation, and he kind of steered me towards you guys. He gave me a lot of great stories about you guys, spoke highly of your customer service, your shop in the box options, and just how, your integration was seamless. They have not had any real issues. And that was kind of what led me to you guys. So I built the first website through you guys in 2021. I worked with Alexandra, and it was a amazing process. It went really smooth. There were a couple extra questions I had on how to, tweak some of the inventory, how to get rid of some of the special items, which she went above and beyond and cleared all of those issues for me. And I've had an amazing site since. And even when I've run into little issues on the website, I've gone back to you guys, and you've been happy to help me wherever I've needed it. So it's just been a great experience.
So now
That's awesome to hear.
For me, I'm still learning on how Shop in Box works and some of the other tools that Data Here to There has, but that really solved your problem with the inventory, right? Because it's pulling everything in from turn 14 that you want on your website, including dealing with pricing and things like that, right? It's more automated, right?
Yes, everything's automated. So they have a turn 14 integration app, which they've set up through Shopify, and it pulls inventory pricing, sets map pricing to make sure that I stay compliant with all the manufacturers and stay out of trouble. And it updates those daily to the website. It pulls in all of the descriptions. It will pull pictures if you want it to, or as you start to update or change some of your pictures or tweak it, you can change those settings to restrict what it does there, so that it won't overwrite any special things you've done. But we went from doing 150, 200 parts in inventory to around 80,000 parts in inventory that we were able to list. Primarily what you see on the front end of the webpage is a lot of Corvettes and Camaros, but there are a lot of other brands and products in the back end that are still available through the connections to Google and some of those SEO links.
Gotcha. Are you able to still use all the features of Shopify, the coupon codes and any marketing tools they have? I know they connect to some email marketing tools and other things like that. You're still able to do all that, right?
Correct. So the Shop in the Box is a theme setup. So it still lets us use all of the regular Shopify tools, all the add-in pieces. It just manages, like I said, the inventory levels, the price, the content, though we have some say in how it manages the content. So we still use our email marketing program through Shopify. We use an SEO add-in as well on Shopify. And then we're now using a bundle program through Shopify. So we can take the work that Data Here to There did with their integration and put those inventories into custom bundles for brake kits, suspension kits, or just general maintenance kits that we're going to start offering next month. We're going to start putting those together to try to make it as easy as possible for the enthusiast that, okay, we want to winterize our car. We want to get all our maintenance done at one time. Great. Here's one simple thing you can buy so you don't have to worry about it.
Oh,
just
cool.
One item, add to cart, and you've got all the bits and bobs you need and all the small stuff that people forget. Like, I know I've seen like the idea of like an oil change kit where you get the right oil with the right exact amount of it, and you get your filter and you get your crush washer and everything you need to get it all done, right? So same kind of idea for winterization kit, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's
and
fantastic.
Especially with the brake packages, it's okay. Here's what we found for track usage, either Wilwood rotors or DBA rotors, Hawk brake pads, or some of the other brake pads. Kind of putting those things together with the braided lines. Just okay. Here's your one quick kit, so you don't have to worry about it. Especially for the new folks going to track. We've already done the research. Take advantage of it.
Absolutely, man. If there's a package like that available for the car I have now, I'm actually hoping to get out on the track with my car this coming year. That would be perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Is like rotors and pads and stuff like that. And then I'm gonna need some better tires because my tires suck right now. And then it's just like from there. Like I'm a big car guy. I know a lot about cars, but all of my knowledge comes from the the stock side of things. Like I know everything about cars when they're sold brand new from the manufacturer, right? Like I know horsepower numbers, I know torque figures, and I know which cars are good for the track. Out of the box kind of thing, right? But when it comes to modifying, I'm still kind of learning that stuff. So as somebody who's getting into that side of things with a car that's still mostly stock at the moment, aside from an exhaust, looking to get into track work and stuff like that, like something where somebody's already done all the research and they're like, look, I know everything about these cars. This is what you need to get started on the track. This is everything. Have at it. That would be perfect. So I totally love your idea there.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That helps the confusion of, because we've heard a lot of things about in just the e-commerce world of people putting stuff in carts, and a lot of abandoned carts because it's like, I don't really know if that's what I need, right? So this will definitely help with that. So Shop in a Box also brings you kind of a basic, not a basic, but a theme, a look and a feel that you can tweak and things like that, correct?
Yes, sir. So we've made a few tweaks. There are a lot of customizable pages. There are feature brands we can do. So we've done sections at the top for featured products for the month where we can change that around to show those. We have a featured brand list. So starting this year, we're actually working with a couple manufacturers to try to run specific specials. So we'll be doing feature brands of the month, and their setup allows us to kind of customize that to put those feature brands up front. Just gives us a lot of options between header, footer, and then the different setup in the middle of the page as well.
What do you do now that you have more free time, right? To focus on other things, are you spending more time on marketing the business to drive that traffic through it, whether it's through social media, email marketing, other things like that, paid advertising?
Yeah. So we did very poorly in the beginning, and I think we've made about every mistake you can think of along the way. So, we ran, starting out, we ran Google ads without any real targeting or knowledge of Google ads, and blew some money there. We've tried, we did social media without understanding how to properly do social media. So if you go back through some of our Instagram, you will see quite a few errors in the beginning. And it was also very much a scattered approach of, okay, we're going to try to do as many things as possible, and realize that was not good. It's better to do a few things well than to do a lot of things poorly.
And be very consistent. Look at the metrics, look at the data, things like that. You need to understand what's working, what's not, and adjust, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to bring in other people that's what they do all the time, right? As you said, you tried to figure it out when you first built a site. So there's other opportunities there in the marketing world too, where you can, if you need it, there are people out there that can help you out with that kind of stuff too, Yeah.
So we like I said, we put a small SEO tool into our Shopify page
or tools, right?
Yeah. So it's Avada SEO, but it does image compression to help the pages load faster, and then just tweak some of the minor things to kind of improve our ratings there. And then we also started a race team this year for 2025 to kind of add to our marketing. And that's where a lot of our focus is going, is using that as well as the business to start working more with manufacturers. And we have a couple now that we're hopefully have some sponsorships to announce within the next month or two.
Yeah, that was one of the things that you had submitted about that. And I wanted to ask you about that. Are you driving it? Is that your team, or is it somebody else driving the car? How's that working? And how do you look at sponsors for that?
So it is my team, but it's 4 individuals right now. I am one of the drivers. But it's primarily running SCCA and NASA time trials for now. That was how we decided we would start to have a nice base. My car that I am currently building and hope to finish within the next month for a March start is not caged yet. That is on the roadmap, but I can still run time trials without the cage so far. Probably not my best safety choice, but we're starting there. So what we've really done with that is we have 4 individual drivers. We haven't set a whole lot of parameters around sponsorship. What we've been trying to do is go and talk with manufacturers and understand what they're looking for and how we can best partner with them and how we can make it a successful thing for both of us. So we've started that with several companies. But we're trying not to be too prescriptive in what we're asking for. Some are parts availability, some are discounts, others are potentially entry fees. And a couple we've talked to want to sponsor one car or they're interested in sponsoring all four. So we're giving it a little bit of leeway there. And then as we kind of get started, as we run this year and we're able to produce better results, and see how we work with our sponsors, we can start getting a little more prescriptive in those agreements.
Cool. What kind of cars you got running?
So we have two C5 Z06 Corvettes, both 2002, one C6 Z06, and one 2015 Porsche Cayman base.
Oh, right on. Got mixing in a little bit of European with all of that American muscle, hey?
Yes, indeed. And then right now, when we finish my car and once it's caged, we will probably use that for, we're looking at the possibility of starting endurance racing with the four drivers as well.
Have you looked at Ultimate Streetcar Challenge? Optima's
I have. We're actually talking about submitting a couple of the cars from the team to that this year.
Have you seen the GTD class, that crazy Frontier, the all-wheel drive Nissan Frontier that won the GTT class last 3 years?
I have.
Yeah. So. We sponsor that truck, so that's why I asked. And we sponsored a C10 that from Level 7 Motorsports, and he actually was on the sponsor promotion side. That's huge for your business because he ran that yellow and white truck in Optima Ultimate Streetcar Challenge, and then the truck went to the owner that helped build that truck. Right now he's in the process, so they've been off about 2 years, I think, off the track. And I was just talking the other day, and that they're building a truck right now that they're going to be out on the track this year, and they feel that that's going to help their business by having that visibility, right?
Yeah, we've been putting a lot into kind of setting up that plan. We now have our giant tents and some of our other stuff for trackside, increase visibility and working the full social media plan to go with that to make the most of it.
Oh, cool.
Absolutely. I get asked this question a lot when I'm working with my customers, other shop and box customers, or just other people like looking to figure out what Data Here to There is all about. I get that question a lot about what's the best way to market my website or my store or, my idea, how do I get more traffic, right? And that's always what I've said specifically is if you're trying to sell car parts to car guys, go where the car guys are. Right. And like a racetrack is a fantastic place to find a lot of car guys, and usually car guys with money, because that's kind of the important part. Right. So racetracks marketing is fantastic, and it's kind of like a high barrier to entry. Like I can't imagine your race team is a cheap thing to run, but if you can get out there and get it going, that's a fantastic way to reach a huge audience. But there's a lot of smaller and cheaper ways to do similar things as well. Not every car guy has, tons of money to go to a racetrack or to send out their own car, but there's a lot of people watching it. And then there's a lot of people also doing, smaller things in smaller communities as well. So you can always go where the car guys are and start finding your community and working with the guys in the community, figuring out what they need and where they shop. And then that'll give you all the information you need, right?
Yep.
One of the things that we talk about, because I speak at the SEMA show, for SEMA education, and we've talked about this a number of times on stages, understanding where your audience lives, whether it's online or offline, right? And with Corvettes, it's interesting, and I'm curious what you're seeing. What are you seeing as far as your average user's age, if you can tell that? Because you're running a lot of C5s and C6s. And I'm just curious. I know what the answer that I know is. I'm curious what yours is.
So I myself am around 45. Well, I am 45. A lot of the customers for those tend to be my age or older.
Okay.
Yeah.
45.
We're not seeing a lot of younger people in those cars. Occasionally, yes, but not generally.
I've got a friend that's like my age, but like I want to say he's 2 years older than me. So like, late 20s now. But anyways, he's got a Z06 of his own, a C7 Z06, and he absolutely adores. And I always make sure to bust his balls that his entire owners club is at least triple his age to double, closer to double now. But yeah, like, where do your customers live? Well, if you're selling Corvette parts, they live behind a grill. They've got halfway knee-high socks, and they're wearing New Balances, right?
I didn't say that.
Me either. I said nothing.
All right, don't. It's Brennan. When people are listening to this in the comments, you can bust on him.
Absolutely, you can come for me.
I'll tell you, as a Corvette guy, for a lot of years, I get people sending me pictures of guys standing around Corvettes with blue jean shorts, white socks, and New Balance. I own none of those. Okay, just so you know.
You gotta subvert the stereotype, Barry. Come on.
Yeah,
I have none of that. So
good work, guys. You're helping out the community.
Yeah. But with that said, the age group, and I was looking at the website, and I noticed that in this, I don't know if this is the parts that you have access to, or the areas that you want to spend your time with, the parts levels. But it looks like you go from C4 all the way up through C8, but there's no C1 through C3s on there. Is that parts availability, or is it just because there's lots of other companies out there that are focused on those that you decided not to have those parts?
So it's a combination. It is a portion of parts availability, but a lot of the shops and businesses that deal with C1 to C3, it's a lot of restoration parts. It's less in the performance realm. And we do get calls from time to time for people looking for C1 to C3 parts, but it's usually people trying to find original parts, which is not something we do there.
So by not having that, you limit that time dealing with emails and calls and stuff for stuff that you may not be an expert on in the first place, right? I'm in the process of semi-restoring my 69, but we're also putting Willwood brakes on it, and we're putting a TKX transmission in it in our C3. So it's a combination of performance parts, finding those, and then finding some old school parts. I took the center console out, and it flattened out. It was all cracked and went boop. So you have to find that old school stuff too, right?
Good luck. Yep.
It's been fun.
Mm-hmm. So Barry, I actually have a question about your restoration there. Are you going more resto mod or more pro touring?
Probably. I loved it. It's got a big block V8 in it, and I don't plan on changing that. It's got a tri-power in it, and I love the tri-power. I might upgrade to EFI at some point because I make some tri-power setups for that. I'd love to autocross, but if I ever autocross, I'm either getting a C10 or a C10 pickup truck to go do that with, or a C5. So probably just, resto mod, performance upgrades. We got a new steering box going into it, different steering wheel, retro radio, again, a 5-speed transmission. So we're not running at 3,600 RPMs at 55 miles an hour. And if I drive my car for more than 45 minutes, I need to wear earplugs. It's that loud. So, but we have Willwood brakes sitting in boxes waiting to go on and things like that. And we're going to probably end up putting, some more performance related Forge Line-ish wheels on it. So it's fun. Nathan, you talk about racing at the track and stuff. We went to, there's UMI Performance Park. I don't know if you've heard of that. UMI Suspension, they have a racetrack. We went to King of the Mountain a couple years back, and when I got home, I was like, I need a C5. I found an amazing C5 that I wanted to buy. My wife goes, no. So we didn't go there, but you have to definitely have a plan, just like going into e-commerce, right? And the strategy, because if you don't, it costs a lot of money. It will with car racing too, but in the sense of costing a lot of money, you can tell me, Nathan, what's your thoughts on this? But if you don't get the right parts, you end up buying parts that you end up having to sell used because you went in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and I found that out very early on, but before I got into this business, because you're like, oh, I'll just buy this cheaper part, like this will be fine, or I'm going to do these couple things, and then you end up undoing it all and spending twice as much money and the
Yeah.
extra time to redo it again. I'm a firm believer in, get the right part the first time and lay it out. We do have discussions. It's generally with the newer folks getting into cars of, okay, what's your ultimate goal for the car? Like, okay, you're trying to buy this one part, but where are you trying to get to, and does this part actually make sense? And there have been times when I've had to tell people, like, look, this isn't what you want to buy. As much as I'd like to sell you something, I don't want you to waste your money, because that's not a benefit for any of us.
Oh, absolutely. And you want to support them with giving them, everybody's different. Everybody has different needs, but if you can point them in the right direction, and help them understand, wait 3 months, save that money and buy that right part the first time. Right. It's the same way with web development and especially e-commerce, right? We build websites for a living. Okay. And we've had so many people over the years go, why does it cost so much? Because we cross all our T's and dot our I's and we do a lot of things. Some of it's really boring, but it's things you need to do for SEO, for other usability, things like that. So you have to think, one of the first things, and you answered that with racing. When we work with a customer for a website, we ask, what's your short-term and long-term goals? Short-term is 2 years, long-term is 5 years or more. What is your plan with this? Because if you build it over here and your plan is to go really big, well, that's the wrong platform. You may need to be over here, right? Like, for example, there's some DIY platforms out there for building websites. Yet I'm not going to name them, but they're really easy to use, but they're really not aligned with connecting with a Turn 14 or things like that. So people would start building on those and manually adding parts, kind of like you did with Shopify, but they find out that they can't even integrate a Turn 14 in that, because I know that Data Here to There also has the Slingshot app, right, that can integrate into a Shopify site. But if you start on something that's not going to grow with you, you're throwing money out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've tried to plan ahead. Will say I still run into issues, and even being in this several years, I still find myself going back and going, I wish I would have done that differently, or I wish I would have planned a little bit better. But we're slowly getting there.
One of the biggest things with e-commerce in general is inventory. With parts, it's aces and pies, all that information, right? And it's shipping. Payment processing is usually fairly easy nowadays, but shipping can be a nightmare too, right? And depending on the kind of parts you have, and if you have a company like Turn 14 that's shipping them for you, you don't have to. Plus, there's warehousing depending on how you're going to do it, right?
Yeah, that saves a ton of money. They can warehouse all the stuff, and I keep limited supply here, so that makes it way easier for me.
When you keep, and let me ask you that, you keep a supply there. Is that stuff that you're selling that Turn 14 doesn't handle for you?
So it's a little bit of both. So I do have a couple agreements with manufacturers that I have found outside of Turn. So one of them is Garmin, especially for the catalyst devices for track use.
Gotcha.
So I stock those here. I stock some common parts here that I can ship locally or deliver to people locally, so that they don't, we're not waiting on that shipping. And it's a lot easier for me to ship those a variety of those products to myself to be able to have local usage. But it's not a ton of parts. It's what I can go through quickly without my wife, killing me for taking up too much space.
What's your plan for growth in the future? I guess is a good segue. We've talked about lots of different things, where you started, where you are now, but what are you working on? Any other types of product parts related that aren't Corvette or Camaro? What's the plan for growth?
Well, we actually, that's a nice segue. So we did just develop a power sports website with data here to there, which will be launching next week, called Power Sports Haven to expand into that market, with Turn 14 buying Tucker Rocky and taking over that inventory. We were able to access a large amount of power sports, and we've been fortunate. So I have a great sales rep at Turn, Frank Noel, that has been educating me on power sports, and then I've found some great people in the community, that have raced dirt bikes and done a lot of stuff, that have been giving me a power sports education. So they've been slowly getting parts from me, people I know and contacts I've made that, as we've expanded out, because one thing leads to another pretty quickly. And so we decided to expand in that direction, and take the risk. And Data Here to There has been a great partner in making that expansion. Other than that, we're expanding. We're using the racing team for some of our advertising, some of our growth there. But our goal for 2025 is to double the business, to try to get more visibility, to partner with more manufacturers and try to build that base. A lot of the manufacturers, where we can work together, that gives us access to larger audiences than we could potentially gather on our own. So it's kind of finding that and getting, those manufacturers into some of the areas that they might not necessarily get into in the smaller community.
Gotcha. One thing that just came to me, because we've talked to a lot of Data Here to There's customers that do parts. You've focused on Corvette and Camaro, and you have the power sports, which is a big industry. How do you go up against the Summits and the Jags of the world, though? It's just, I'm very curious about that. How do you succeed against those guys?
So the nice way to put it is I don't try to compete with the Summits and the Jags.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to win that battle. Sheer size, sheer dollar amount.
Yeah. They
have the ability to, cut costs where I can't. They have the ability to carry way more inventory than I can. The way that I build my market is through customer interaction, customer service, talking with those folks and figuring out what they need and spending more time in the community, the areas, the racetrack, getting to know these folks and building from there. If trying to compete with the big commerce brands, me as a small company, I'm not going to win that. I can carve out my niche and I can continue to grow that niche and get bigger. And as I grow, I will eventually get to compete with that if that's where we get to. But right now, I don't consider that, to be an area of competition that's wise for my business.
That's a long-term goal, right?
Yeah.
That's not even on the radar at the moment, but if it happens, great, right?
Exactly.
So we got one thing we always ask is, can you share a couple recommendation tips, advice to help the audience avoid any, starting an e-commerce site or doing what you're doing, even going racing, right, to promote their business?
Yep. So for starting e-commerce, the first area of advice is find reputable partners. There are a lot of recommendations out there on reselling, retail arbitrage, I will say, and getting into those. You find reputable partners and good partners and partners that will work with you. I got really lucky my first time around because I got to great sales rep, great people that were willing to kind of have those conversations and guide me. And then got to Data Here to There that has been a great partner and kind of helped guide me through that. And, we were successful with the first one. We've come back and done another website now because we've had that great relationship. But it is not fast, easy money like you see a lot. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to build this, and it is not an overnight thing. For racing, patience, 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 and seat time. Lots and lots of seat time. It does not matter what you put into a car if you do not have time in the seat behind the wheel and driving. It is not going to make a difference.
Yeah. Do you have, on the racing side, do you have any mentors or any schools you've gone to kind of get the basics down? Because you can always be learning, right? But there's some core things you have to know if you're running road courses, any racing actually.
Yeah. So I started out with NASA with Chin Track Days doing the HPDEs, got some instruction there. My friend who actually got me into it is now been driving for 12 years, and our other friend has been driving for 30 years. And he raced dirt bikes professionally, and was an instructor and held a pro license for a while. So he has been an amazing mentor as well. And there have been a couple times we've been at the track and okay, I can't figure this out. And he hops in and I hop in the passenger seat and he shows me some of the things I should be doing. Though I've learned that way. The other thing you can't see behind me because it's still all in boxes is I now have a racing sim setup that is in the process of being put together to try to use that to help learn.
Those are cool. A lot of guys are using those to get track time in the middle of winter and things like that, and just not beat up on their car, or there's only certain times you can get on the track, right? So definitely a good investment for sure. On the recommendations for e-commerce, one thing that I had heard was that you niche down, right? And even with Motorhead Digital, we niche down in the automotive aftermarket, right? And that's where we spend all our efforts, right? Do you spend any time at events like the SEMA show? I know you go to the SEMA show, but what do you recommend for people like that? Have you gotten a lot out of that with the SEMA show? Are there any other events that you go to?
So I've been to SEMA, I've been to PRI. I am a SEMA member. I am a PRI member. I was on the pro committee with SEMA, so the Professional Restylers org. But I'm actually pulled back from that committee after the last SEMA. I just wasn't seeing as much benefit out of it. It wasn't really aligning with what I was doing as much. So I have been to SEMA 3 times now. So my first time was 2022. But I am one of those people that goes in, I go through the app, I find everybody that's there. I have lists of who I'm going to talk to and the topics I want to cover. I start sending emails, a month before SEMA to set up my meetings and try to make the most of it. I don't think I've ever seen everything at the SEMA show because it is very much I take it as a business trip, and the goal is to get as much done with all the folks in one location as possible. So this last year, we filmed some promo clips with some companies. We started some of those sponsorship discussions at SEMA. I missed PRI this year, unfortunately, but that's another one. I treat it the exact same way that, while it is a great car event and I love seeing the stuff, it is there about trying to meet with the manufacturers and grow. And, we go out to Ultimate Street Cars, see some of the stuff's there, and also take it for a lot of ideas for, what we can do better, what we can do outside of what we've been thinking. You see a lot of creative ideas there, and that's given us some other areas that we may expand into. We're actually looking at starting to manufacture our own parts.
There's a lot of guys out there. Level 7, for example, LJ Conversions, a truck we sponsor, where they're winning is they have a lot of parts that only they have, right? Especially LJ, right? Because they're doing swap kits and things like that. But so that's a good direction to go, I think, if you have specific parts that you can do better than somebody else, and that you can, obviously you want to, you can niche in there, right? And you can also make a profit with that. I find myself, we did 37 miles at SEMA this year, and I get back and watch social media and go, where was that? Where I see so many things that after, but we met Data Here to There. We met Stephanie and Jay back in 2021 at a educational session that I was doing. So that's how far we go back. But anyways, that's all I got today.
So I have one question for you. Between your two Corvettes, which one's your favorite?
Well, the 69 is mine and the 2013 is my wife's. You ever watch Tim Allen Tool Time?
Mm-hmm.
The 69 gives you the, because it's got chambered exhaust on it. And I started up in my big pole building. It's just badass. But the 2013 for longer drives and things like that, yeah, definitely go with that. But I like my older vet, and I like it a lot more once we get some of the mods done to it and get the interior. I got the whole interior ripped out right now, and it's just sitting there because it's been too damn cold to go in and put we're putting hush mat in it, new carpet and things like that, new radio and stuff. But yeah.
You're putting that stuff in. I'm ripping it out.
We're not planning on racing. If I was going to go racing, I'd probably. I remember talking at Muscle on the Mountain with Jesse Vaughn from Level 7. I says, if I was to do this and go autocrossing and stuff, what would you recommend I start with? He says, go buy a C5. He says those cars are not crazy money, and they're set up, almost 50-50. And that would be probably how I'd get a Z06. There's actually one here local I want to buy, but again, I have to convince my wife.
Every car guy's always got the car that they're currently looking at, like, oh, that would be awesome. I've got to come up with my own disposable income, or I've got to, convince the wife, right? Those are always the two.
And that car may change by the month.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I flip back and forth between that and a C10. I'm always looking at stuff. We've had so many cars over the years because I get bored with what we got. I'm looking for the next best thing. But anyways, yeah. So anyways, I think that's it, guys. Thanks, Nathan, for joining us today. Can you tell everyone where to find you? How can they reach out to you? How can they learn more about what you're doing?
So you can find us, our website at CorvetteRealm.com, or our new website, PowerSportsHaven.com. You can find us on social media at Corvette Realm on Instagram, or our race team website, DarkEnergyRacing.com.
Nice. I just followed Dark Energy the other day. Well, thanks for joining us today for the Year, Make, Model, Money podcast by Data Here to There. Don't forget to like and follow us, and we'll see you next time.
Join our next episode of the Year, Make, Model, Money podcast, the DH2T Auto Parts podcast, where we'll interview another mover and shaker in the automotive parts industry and give your business the boost it needs to succeed in the online world.